Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Burger. I'm Carol Ann Romo, the Executive Director of the New Mexico Beef Council, and I am here with Tom Paterson, the newly coming into office President of New Mexico Cattle Growers Association.
Good morning, Carol Ann. Howdy.
Yeah, howdy. So we are sitting here in Nashville, Tennessee at the Cattle Con. Kind of like, I like to say it's like Comic-Con, but it's for cowboys and cattlemen and women. And we've been in and out of meetings and all kinds of things, and we both carved out, an hour, but we probably really actually have 43 minutes, and so we'll get this done. But thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast, and thank you for the work you do. First, will you just introduce yourself and maybe start with the ranch? Tell me about your ranch and your background, and just who's Tom?
Sure. My name is Tom Paterson. The summer before I was born, many years ago, my folks bought a small ranch up at Luna, New Mexico, which is right on the Arizona border in southwestern part of the state. No matter where I've slept, Luna's always been home for me. I graduated from Silver High School. I was a bicentennial senior. That dates me a little bit. I went off to school at Texas A&M, got a degree in ag economics, went to the University of Wisconsin and got a master's, a PhD, and a law degree. Went back to Texas and practiced natural resource law, primarily complex commercial litigation, for about 40 years. Along the way, met my wife, had two wonderful daughters, and realized that practicing law wasn't nearly enough for me because there was something in my heart that needed to be dealt with, and it was a passion, continues to be a passion, to participate in an industry such as we're doing this week at NCBA's Cattle Con. 10,000 cattlemen and cattlewomen, the people who produce the protein that America covets, the world covets. I wanted to be part of that operation. And I wanted to give back to the land that supports us. So we began our ranch, which we call Spur Ranch Cattle Company, in 1997. We named it Spur Ranch because there was an author, widely regarded author, Montague Stevens, who wrote a book called Meet Mr. Grizzly. And he was the founder of the Spur Ranch back in the 1800s. Fascinating career. Highly recommend Meet Mr. Grizzly to all of the listeners. And we wanted to revive that name, so we called it Spur Ranch. We started small. We're on our own, doing it all by ourselves. No one gave anything to us. We didn't inherit it. And so we bought some private property. We bought a grazing allotment because in Catron County, there's not a whole lot of land if you don't have grazing allotments. We've added to that over on the Arizona side of the border. We had what we call Spur Ranch 1.0, which was a stocker operation. We transitioned that to a cow-calf operation in about 2012 with an operation we bought down at Alma, New Mexico, just south of us. And then we've been in 3 years of drought, terrible drought in Catron County. And so now we find ourselves at a point where instead of running about 600 head, we've had to vastly cull the herd. And until we get through this drought, until we get some water resources reestablished, we're going to be focused primarily on raising the cattle we have left, but also on doing infrastructure projects that have needed to be done, and now's the time to do them.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting journey you took and such a cool thing. Actually, the last podcast guest was a lawyer, but he only practiced law for a year, so a bit different there. But it's just neat to see when someone has a different career and does other things, lives other places, but the ranch and the ranch in New Mexico specifically brings you back, right? Or the dream of that. So I love that. Well, kind of bringing it back to why we're here in Nashville and why, you might hear some background noise today and you might see us, watching our friends walk by us. Tell me about your role with the New Mexico Cattle Growers Association.
The New Mexico Cattle Growers Association represents the beef producers, the men and the women in New Mexico who produce cattle, beef cattle. The men and women who live and do that in rural New Mexico. So our charge is to represent them, to advocate for them on the issues that will advance the industry, things that we need to help us do a better job at it, and also to work diligently to keep bad stuff from happening. As we record this, the New Mexico legislature is in session for our 30-day session. And there's some good things in the legislature going on. There's some really bad things going on in the legislature that we've been actually working on here this morning. And there are just some plumb crazy things going on in the New Mexico legislature, which I hope never see much of the light of day. So New Mexico Cattle Growers advocates for our producers and the rural communities in which they live at a local level, at a state level, and at a national level.
It's such important work that you do, and I always like to make sure and clarify too that the New Mexico Beef Council we are not a lobbying organization, right? So we don't touch policy. We do promotion, education, and research. But it's really important for our cattle producers that there is an organization that does that, and so I'm always impressed and grateful that you guys lead that charge, and those of us as individuals can be, involved politically, but we are not as an organization, because I'm not ready for that, right? The organization you lead is in good hands with.
Oh, come on, Carol Ann. Let's be fair here. What you do for the producers in New Mexico is unbelievable. We've watched it over the last couple years. Here we are in Nashville, Tennessee this week, and we're watching the New Mexico Beef Council Balloon Fiesta balloon go up here, and there is a level of excitement here, and that's just one of the things. During our state meeting the other day, I was deliberate in calling you out and saying, I want you to also tell these guys and women about the Dion's Pizza that you're behind. And those are just two of so many different initiatives that you and the Beef Council, many of whom are here, have been responsible for over the past couple of years. We could not be prouder of the work you do.
Oh, thank you. You're going to make me emotional. It's an honor. It's an honor to serve the producers. I know we love to say that I work for you guys. I work for the producers of New Mexico, every producer of New Mexico, and I work. And then that beautiful Beef It's What's for Dinner hot air balloon belongs to the producers of New Mexico, right? And that's why your Spur brand is on there on the door. And any producers, if we have time, we'd love to get your brand on there if you haven't already. We've tried to have some public opportunities to do that, but it's just really important that to say that I work for you all, and it's such an honor because I always say at the end of the podcast, but I'll say it now too, I'm grateful for people who are willing to take the risk and put themselves out there for the opportunity to grow food and put food and clothes on our back, right? It's a risk, it's small margins, it's so many factors, there's so many things you guys deal with, and so I'm honored to represent those kind of people. Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of talked about your operation and the history of it, but what is something that what is like the most rewarding part for you, whether it's at the ranch or whether it's at Cattle Growers, but what's the most rewarding thing?
I'm living Genesis 1 from the Bible. The Lord said to man, be a wise steward of his creation, of his land, and of his creatures. And that's what we aim to do every day. And I get to do it in the midst of his creation. And I get to do it with his people who are likewise committed to wise stewardship of our land and of our animals. That's pretty special.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful, and I will say that rural New Mexico specifically, and being amidst the creation and the environment in New Mexico is beautiful, right? What a wonderful place to do business.
Amen. Amen.
Amidst the drought and the struggles and the things, it's still a very beautiful place to live.
But even that drought and the struggles we face force us to think harder and better about overcoming obstacles where we can. And I guess one way I'm trying to learn to teach myself to look upon those issues is not that I want a lot more of them, we have enough, but as the way God's training us to take on bigger and bigger challenges.
The word adaptability comes to mind, that you have to be adaptable and you have to, weather through it, right? And find new solutions.
Absolutely.
Which is fun too. We've been walking around the trade show here and seeing all of the innovations and technology. That's really impressive. Do you have any particular piece of technology or innovation that you guys use on the ranch that's a favorite?
It has to be my hydraulic squeeze chutes. I mean, a couple weeks ago we were down processing cows. I think we did 80 head in about 45 minutes. We were re-ear tagging them. And everything, the hydraulic squeeze chute worked perfectly. It was quiet. Those cows kind of went in, got their old ear tag taken off, got their new ear tag put on. We were able to look at them. It was great. I love my hydraulic squeeze chutes.
Yeah, well, and that's a really fun thing to talk to producers about is kind of the toys or the tools, right? They're tools, but sometimes they feel like they're so special that it's like giving a kid a toy, but it's really just making your life so much easier and the animals' lives.
Absolutely, and let's not forget the animals in that equation. This is something that really enhances the quality for them.
Yep, that was kind of the next thing I was thinking is those chutes. The hydraulic chute is designed to give the animal comfort. Sometimes, or some of the things we learned, I think, in my opinion, one of the first people that really went public about it was Grandin, about animals like enclosed spaces, right? And so they feel comforted, they feel confident being in that enclosed space. And so this piece of technology makes it easier to get them in that spot where they're confident, they trust you, and you can get the work done that they need. And those ear tags are important for identification and knowing, how old they are, what their growth pattern is. So if something's wrong and they're not growing or anything like that,
right.
That's very important.
If listeners haven't watched the movie Temple, I highly recommend that. It's about Temple Grandin, who's responsible for transforming our industry in so many respects, including on how we take care of our cattle.
Absolutely. I would recommend.
Everything we have on the ranch is Temple Grandin design because we started from scratch. If we made a mistake, it's on us. But everything we did based on Temple Grandin's designs. 12-foot alleys, tubs, hydraulic squeeze chutes, covered processing area. She's had an amazing impact on the cattle production industry in the United States. Very, very grateful to Dr. Grandin.
Oh, absolutely. And I think grateful for universities that are working to study more of that, right? I know she still is, I think, an adjunct professor at Colorado State University, and they still do research there. So that's something for a consumer to know, that there's people actively studying how to treat cattle the best possible way. Right? We're always trying to do better. We're always trying to learn, trying to figure out a better way to do things, because treating the animal better, I always like to compare it to, it ends up in more profitability, right? So it's not even just the kindness of our heart and the care of our livestock, which is true. It's also financially responsible to take better care. And so I always like to draw those two conclusions too. Yep. So how do New Mexico's landscapes and climate shape the way you ranch?
From the beginning, we select our bulls and our cows to fit the landscape, to fit the climate we have, to fit the rainfall patterns. So we look for about a 1,600-pound bull. We look for cows that are going to weigh probably about 1,050 to 1,100 pounds, because we don't want to put animals out on the range that are going to require more in the way of groceries than the land can provide. So we insist on that. We also make sure that when we're selecting bulls based on our first stop when we are considering bulls is to look at their expected progeny differences, their EPDs. So I want a bull that's going to have a heifer that is going to have calving knees, high score on calving knees, because the chances are she's going to be out in a pasture, and I'm not going to be there to help her if she has a problem when she's calving. So I need a calving knees. I don't want a cow out there on the landscape that is going to produce 35 pounds over the herd, the industry average in milk, because we don't have the groceries for it. I want one that's probably going to be producing about 17 to 23 pounds over. That's kind of the target we set for that. Fortunately, I have a brother, Dr. John Paterson, who's Montana State, who's been an incredible resource for our operation for many, many years, who makes me toe the line on all those things. And then we go look at the bulls. We weed it down to a certain bulls fit our profile, and then we go look at the bulls for confirmation and other stuff and cost.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you said the EPD, the name, because that's always my job, is to help with the acronyms in the podcast. And that one, I was having trouble the other day remembering that difference word. I knew it was expected progeny, and we were, going back and forth. So thank you for that. And yet, I think that data that there is on cattle is really important and really neat, and shows how far we've come, right? We're not picking bulls because they're beautiful and they look like the bull my grandpa had, right? We're picking because of exactly the things you said, and I love that technology aspect. We don't have that much information about ourselves.
And that's on our bull and our cow selection. But we also, as we work the ranch, we want to put in our fences and our drinkers in ways that are consistent with the landscape. So the fences that we put in, we want to design those or have those fences in places so that we can funnel cattle down to processing areas. It's easier to gather them. It's easier to move them. In terms of our water, we're going to put our wells, our pipelines, our storage tanks, our drinkers in areas that are underserved, where there aren't natural sources of water and there are no stock tanks otherwise, or we can't even put in a stock tank. We're going to focus on those areas. So it's across the board. We're trying to work with the environment, with the landscape as we select our animals and as we build the ranch.
Absolutely, as you have to, right? Can you give an example or another example, because now we've talked about a couple, of how you care for your cattle to support their health and well-being?
Well, with a brother who was the beef cattle extension specialist in Montana for about 25 years, John Paterson, I have a protocol for everything that he has insisted on. So we have a bull protocol, the kind of bulls, and we've talked about that. We have a cow protocol, the kind of cows. We lay it out. We have a protocol on vaccinations. These are the vaccinations we're going to give every year. I run it by Dr. Allred, our herd veterinarian. Every time we get ready to vaccinate our cows and calves. I also run it by Dr. Wenzel, our extension veterinarian for New Mexico, has just done an amazing job in so many ways. We have a supplement protocol. These are the supplements we're going to put out, the protein, the mineral. What are the minerals that our area is deficient in? For example, if you're deficient in copper, you need to add more copper. If you're deficient in selenium, you need to add more selenium. So we want to make sure that what we're giving is what these cattle need. We have a sales protocol about when we sell, how long the calves have been on the cows, how long it's going to be until the cow is going to have another calf. The breeding protocol, we typically do a protocol where we bring the open cows into an area. We put bulls in with them for a couple days, and then we run them through the chute, and we give them a shot of Lutalice, and then we put them out there with a bunch of bulls for a while, and then we put them in small traps. And for our country, that gets us higher conception rates than you might otherwise expect.
What's the Lutalice?
Lutalice is I don't know if it's a progesterone or what, but it enhances the cow coming into estrus, so she can get bred.
Yep. Okay. Okay, makes them cycle or yep. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So there's so many things, right? So many things, and all of your protocols lead towards better cattle health. Yeah, absolutely. What's one thing most people don't realize about raising cattle in New Mexico? Or maybe even what's kind of something that you want consumers to know about it?
I want them to know about our commitment to doing it right. If we don't take care of the land, you hear this over and over again, and it's true. You should be hearing it over and over again. If we don't take care of the land and the water resources, they won't take care of us. I think there's actually lots of common ground that we have with many people across New Mexico. If they would just stop and come out and actually go to a ranch or listen to your podcast, Carol Ann, about the commitment we have to wise stewardship of our land and of our cattle. I don't think people in New Mexico, for example, know the role that we play in establishing habitat for wildlife. When folks started coming into New Mexico, and at least into western New Mexico and some other parts in the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, wildlife were largely confined to riparian areas. What the ranchers have done is put water elsewhere in unwatered areas. We put in the stock tanks, the wells, we've developed the springs, we put in the pipelines, the storage tanks, the drinkers. And it's not just cattle that go water there. It's everything. The elk, the deer, birds, I call them varmints. They're watering in there too. And so we've been able to spread wildlife habitat out beyond the riparian area substantially. And that increases opportunities for our hunting community and for people who just like looking at wildlife. A lot of that depends on the ranchers. You take the rancher off the landscape, who's going to do it? It's not the Forest Service. It's not the BLM. It's not the state. It's not these organizations that say they're out there to protect the wildlife. It's the rancher. It's the rancher who does all that work.
I find that a really, really fascinating way to describe it, and I haven't even thought of that myself, of understanding that the ranchers did develop a lot of those water systems. So that's new information, or a new storytelling version of it that I appreciate, and I can picture that, right, of that. So thank you for that. That's really, really a great example. What's something you're excited about in your operation right now?
Given where we are in the drought, we're going to have to pivot a little bit and spend more time on infrastructure projects that are overdue getting done. I want to make sure that when I pass the ranch on to my daughters, who are both heavily engaged, even from a distance, in managing the ranch, and are not shy about offering opinions to their dad about what they think I should be doing. I want to leave it to them so that what they have is not going to require a lot of maintenance, or, for example, we do metal or rock or anywhere close to the ground. We want to have our woods we've managed the woods, so we're not as at risk of a bad wildfire. We want to take care of all those issues, and we have an opportunity now that, because of the drought, actually, to deal with a number of those issues. We want to get it right, and it also, having gone through Spur Ranch 1.0 and 2.0, now it's time for us to think hard about what Spur Ranch 3.0 is going to look like, so that we're doing it in a way that's profitable. Because if we can't do it profitably, we can't do it at all. And consistent with our passion about fulfilling God's commandment to us to take care of the land and the livestock.
Again, beautifully said, and I love that specific using metals and rock and things instead of wood, because we live in a state where wildfires is a problem. What a great solution, right? Maybe a more expensive solution or a more difficult solution, possibly, but it makes sense.
Storage tanks, drinkers in the corrals, multiple drinkers in the corrals. If a helicopter needs to come in and get a big load of water, we keep all those drinkers open during fire season. We got to do that.
Absolutely. We're thankful you do. So tell us something you're excited about with New Mexico cattle growers.
New Mexico cattle growers is on the move. I am so proud of the officer team that I have. Dave Kinnicky in northeastern New Mexico, Vice President. Jeff Decker in southeastern New Mexico, Regional Vice President. Tracy Drummond for the Southwestern Regional Vice President. Marjorie Lantana for the Northwestern Regional Vice President. Marshall Wilson, who is at the core of doing so many things to protect.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This episode of Behind the Burger is brought to you by the New Mexico Beef Council. At NMBC, we're all about supporting New Mexico's ranchers and bringing the story of beef to life, from pasture to your plate. If you're enjoying these conversations, be sure to follow us on social media to keep the journey going. You'll find us on Instagram and TikTok at NMBeef and on Facebook at NM Beef Council. We're sharing ranch life, beef tips, recipes, and the people behind the plate. Come be part of the story.
Livestock in New Mexico is our Vice President at Large, and Tamara Hurt, CPA from down in Deming, is going to be serving as our Secretary-Treasurer. I'm very proud of them, but I'm also really proud of our committee chairs. Each of them is going to be heading up a committee this year, and we have a fabulous group of committee chairs and vice chairs. We'll actually be doing a training session on this next week where we talk about what are the issues in your wheelhouse and what are the resources you need to get them across the finish line. But whether it's at a state or a federal level, cattle growers is actually doing stuff. And I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing in the legislature with the agencies. The crazy stuff that we've gotten stopped, like the heat rule that we got stopped this past year, the progress that we've made on managing Mexican wolves, in just so many different, the spectacular work that has been done to shut down, to the extent we've been able to, the prospect of NITSE, the National Interest Electric Transmission Corridor along the eastern part of the state. That's New Mexico cattle growers. We're the ones at the forefront of all of those initiatives, and with allies. Let me just say, we got great allies. The Farm Bureau, the dairy producers, the Association of Conservation Districts. We got great allies in our ag group, and I couldn't be prouder or more humbled to be able to work with all of them. But here within Cattle Growers, we are committed and we are passionate. We're going to get it done.
It takes that commitment and takes that passion. So we're I'm sure everyone's excited that you're at the lead, and yeah, you have a great group of people, and excited to see where it goes. So wish you all the best with all of that. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely.
More to report.
Oh, good. Absolutely. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Ask for help. My mom grew up in central Minnesota. She wore flour sack dresses. She managed to become a nurse. She was the last class of nurses trained for World War II. And she told me one day, I guess I was in high school, she said that along the way she learned that if you do a good job, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for advice from other folks, because chances are they're more, in her experience, and it's proven true in my life, they're willing to help. They're willing to pay it back, pay it forward. And That's probably been one of the most invaluable things I've had, to be teachable and to be able to ask for help and advice.
Oh, that's great advice. Absolutely the best advice. I can't even add on to that. I need that. I need to learn that or remember that because, the more we can get help. I know being welcomed into the New Mexico agriculture and beef community has been really wonderful, and I've received a lot of advice and kindness, and I'm ever grateful. And I'm grateful that being here at NCBA makes me think of the other state beef council execs and the federation and all of that, all of the community that gives me that help and makes it easy to shoot a text to somebody and say, am I doing this right, or what's your gut check? And I'm so grateful for the help I've received.
That's who we are in agriculture. Let's just remember, ask for help.
Absolutely.
Ask for a mentor, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. I've gone to so many sessions the last couple days where the key point has been mentorship. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I know if it hadn't been for my brother, we never would have had as successful an operation as we do today. I'm very grateful to him and to so many others from whom I've learned.
Yep. Absolutely. I've only been at the New Mexico Beef Council for a year and a half, but we wouldn't be able to do any of the things we've done without the help I've received. So and the support from a wonderful board. You talk about your team, and I started thinking, we got some great New Mexicans on our teams.
And you're going to have New Mexico cattle grower representatives at your board meetings henceforth.
Yeah, we love it. We appreciate the support. And again, like I said, I think it's really neat that we have our different, main goals, but the overall goal is to support producers and make ranching something that happens for generations, which is often the goal of each individual rancher. And so I'm glad that we can work together while still filling our certain roles in a lot of ways.
And doing what it is that the American consumer absolutely wants. I think one of the big issues that they've talked about during this NCBA convention is the food triangle. I mean, beef is no longer on the bottom level. It's at the top. And that takes a community to produce that protein, to convert grass to protein that the American consumer covets. That's what we're about, and we're going to do it right.
Absolutely. I know NCBA specifically as a contractor to the checkoff showed that when they were creating the dietary guidelines, more than 20 pieces of their research projects that were checkoff funded research projects, helped inform the information that came out in the new dietary guidelines. And that science and fact-based information helped our government make a informed decision, a science-based decision and realization that absolutely animal protein is a high quality protein and an important part of everyone's diet from infancy to
6 months on.
Yeah, from 6 months on. Yeah, so that's a great win and a great thing, like you said, meeting the goals of the American public. Yep. So we've kind of already talked about it, and I never want to miss any questions or cut you off, but we all do have other places to go here in Nashville and meetings, so I don't want to take too long. But one of the most important questions we ask: why do you do what you do? Why do you work to improve your ranch, and why do you work to fight for other ranchers? And again, you've already said it, but just to reiterate, what makes you keep going?
Passion to fulfill what God commanded me to do. And that's to take care of the land, to take care of his creatures, and to work with my fellow man to accomplish that. That's why I do it. It's passion.
That's the ultimate motivator, a beautiful response, right? Is there anything anything that we've talked about doing this podcast for a while, but then you're busy, I'm busy, and the only place we could meet up together is 1,000 miles away from home, or I'm not sure how many miles. Yeah. But what a neat opportunity, and we've got this fun backdrop and great spot. So I'm excited, and I keep seeing friends walk by. So we're getting some advertising for our podcast out as people walk by.
Well, just remember, I've been talking to the folks in Wyoming about having them to issue an invitation for the New Mexico Beef Council to take the balloon up to Cheyenne for Frontier Days this summer. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be fun. That would be very fun. Yeah, the balloon is kind of out for hire, right? We have a price list of what it costs us to get places. We're not trying to be, largely profitable on it, but the NCBA convention team paid for it to be here in Nashville so that it wasn't costing us money, but part of their WOW budget, instead of paying another entertainer, they paid for the balloon to be here. So, but yeah, if other cattle organizations, beef councils, agriculture organizations, sports teams, anything. If you guys want to have a Beef It's What's for Dinner balloon, we usually come with friends and goodies, whether it be, cards or pins or beef sticks. We'd be excited to go somewhere, but
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dion's took the best parts of a green chili bacon cheeseburger and made them a pizza. Savory beef, hatch green chili, crispy bacon, and melty cheese, all on a handcrafted crust. It's bold, it's beefy, it's a pizza worth sharing. Try it today at any Dion's location.
With all of that, we've talked about doing the podcast for forever. Was there anything that you wanted to make sure and get said while we were on the podcast, or something else you'd like to add?
I am enormously humbled to be in this position as a rancher, and then more specifically today as president of the New Mexico Cattle Growers Association. Join our team. Join our team to protect rural New Mexico, to protect the men and women and children who live in rural New Mexico, protect them from the craziness that sometimes goes on, protect them from the additional cost burdens, tax burdens that make it more expensive for us to do our work. Work with us on rural health care. Work with us on rural education. Join the team. We are committed to it. And Cattle Growers is there to make it happen. That's what I want your listeners to know.
Thank you. And what advice would you have for someone that wanted to follow in your footsteps, whether it be starting a ranch on your own or joining cattle growers or advocating for the industry? What's advice that you'd have?
I want people to follow their own passion, whatever it is that's laid on their heart. Dream hard about it. Plan on how you're going to execute on your dream. Review how you're doing with executing on your dream. Analyze, is what you're doing still consistent with what you set out to do? And lastly, tweak it. Tweak it as necessary. So I set out when I was 18 years old, graduated from Silver High School as a bicentennial senior. Bicentennial senior for the state of New Mexico that year, actually. I wanted to go off to college and grad school, law school, and come back to New Mexico to represent rural New Mexico against concentrations of economic and political power that in my short lifetime at that point were always hampering what we could do in agriculture. It took me a little longer than I had expected. It took me more like 50 years. But the education, the experience, the training, all of that has come together and given me just a profound opportunity to represent the people I care about deeply. So what I need support. I need folks to get on the team and join us in doing this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I think if that's not a call to action, I don't know what it is. What is? Okay, so my last question, and then we'll rush off to meetings and meet you in New Mexico for the next thing. I'm sure we'll see each other in a few weeks. But my last question: what is your current favorite way to eat beef?
Well, it's been sort of a long-standing way. I want Spur Ranch beef. It's grass-fed beef. I know what went into producing that beef because I did it. I want to take a Spur Ranch grass-fed filet. I want to take it out of the icebox, freezer of the icebox, and salt and pepper it on both sides. I want to cook it for 4 minutes on each side in a cast iron skillet and then enjoy it.
Ooh, that's good details. We like that. Absolutely. You might have to send us a picture next time you do that so we can add it to the video. And yeah. Well, and I think I understand that gratification of an animal that you raised and a quality meat that you created or you helped finish the end product, right? Is quite delicious and quite wonderful. And I should say a quick little side plug that if you want local beef, you're looking for somewhere to buy beef at in New Mexico, we do have a local beef directory on our website, and you can find ranchers in your county or direct-to-consumer family-owned businesses.
We have worked so hard for a number of years to get state meat inspection, and my understanding is that by March or April of this year, the program will be up and running. I am so proud of our legislature and the people at the Livestock Board who have been responsible for getting that done. Now go. And so we have processors that cattle growers have been supporting for the last year and again this year to make sure that they can access the technology they need to get rid of the animal waste products and the air and water waste that are generated when you harvest an animal. So, and it's going to give our ranchers another outlet for their beef. So, and it gives consumers, it gives our schools, our elderly, our senior citizen centers access to another source of beef, grass-fed New Mexico beef. And that's what we're all about, is increasing alternative market outlets for our producers. So eat New Mexico beef.
Absolutely. And we always say too, the biggest way to support ranchers is to buy beef where you are. And if you want local beef, we have a directory that tells you how the beef was raised. You can talk to a rancher and have a conversation, and those processing policies and things that have gone to place and grants to help New Mexico processing is solving a need that's been there for quite some time.
Absolutely, and it's also employing the local folks. It's giving them job opportunities, and we're absolutely all about that too.
Yeah, and a special shout out too to all of our New Mexico processors. I've had the opportunity to meet some of them, and they're all just great people working hard and working against a lot of difficulties because of things that are now hopefully being fixed and being improved. And don't
forget the New Mexico Department of Agriculture. Those folks there, Jason New, Nick Franzini, Secretary Woody, they've done an outstanding job of supporting these folks to put New Mexico beef on the plate of New Mexicans.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of the New Mexico Department of Ag. They've been great. They've been so much fun to work with, and we even had Secretary Whitty on the podcast, and that was quite a fun one.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
of course, it would be with Secretary Whitty. Absolutely.
Well, Tom, I so appreciate your time, your passion, your willingness to work hard, and even specifically your kindness to me and my team. You've been so supportive and so kind, and I just appreciate that as a human. And as a consumer and then a representative of the beef industry, thank you for continuing to work hard to put healthy, safe options of beef on our plate and working to help other producers do the same thing.
Thank you, Carol Ann. It's our privilege and our honor.
Awesome. Thank you again. Behind the Burger is a podcast produced by the New Mexico Beef Council with the goal of telling the stories of the cattlemen and cattlewomen of the New Mexico beef industry. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. If you would like more information, please visit nmbeef.com. Whether it be a burger, a steak, or another beef dish, we hope you are enjoying beef at your next meal.